In this video, we're going to demonstrate how to replace the Human Touch Opus Main PCB. You may wish to position a box or another sturdy object underneath just to make it easier to work with the rear of the chair raised slightly off the floor. First thing we're going to do then is using a paper clip, insert into the zipper tab and open the zipper that secures the rear plastic shroud to the back of the chair. Then use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove the two screws that secure the rear plastic shroud. Remove that shroud, and then again using a Phillips head screwdriver, remove the screws that secure the white PCB cover. Once you remove the rearmost cover, you can then remove the screws that secure the other white plastic cover. You need to remove all the cables from the little inserts in the plastic cover, then you can slide the plastic cover out from the side. Now we're ready to simply start unplugging every single connector from the main PCB. Do not cut any zip ties and try to sort of leave the cable bundles roughly where they are located. It'll make it much easier to reconnect them after you install the new PCB. So just start at one spot on the board, work your way around, disconnecting all the connectors as you go. Once all the connectors are disconnected from the board, we need a Phillips head screwdriver to remove the 7 screws that secure the board to the chair. There's 3 on the side of the board closest to you, 3 on the rear edge of the board, and 1 in the middle. You'll obviously need a short screwdriver in order to remove those rear edge screws. And it's also really helpful if the screwdriver is magnetized. very difficult to keep track of the screws otherwise once they're loose. Oh, looks like we found a couple more screws. That'll bring us to a total of 9 screws. Looks like we missed a couple connectors there. Then you can just kind of lift up on the cabling and slide the board out to the left. To install the new board then, first position the board with that tallest component there toward the front left, and then slide the board carefully in underneath all the cabling from the left, aligning the holes with the screw holes on the chair. Using your short Phillips head screwdriver again, replace the 9 screws that secure the board. Now we're ready to start reconnecting the connectors to the new PCB. You can see we've inserted a little flashlight here to make the connectors more visible. And the first thing we're going to do is locate the connector block that has a small 2-prong green connector, small white, yellow, and black. Those run right up the center of the board. So we're going to connect those 4 connectors first. Next, we're going to locate the cable bundle that you can see here. There's a small red, yellow, purple, green, and then another red, blue, orange, and yellow. So there's 8 connectors in this cable bundle, 8 small connectors. These go in the rear left corner and down the left side. So they're all color coded except for the last one. We'll get to that one, but just match them up by the number of pins and the color as usual. The second one, the orange one, it plugs into a lighter orange plug, almost looks more peach. And the last connector, which is red, plugs into an orange connector base. There we go. Next, locate the cable bundle that has a purple, a black, and a white connector. That goes in the rear right-hand corner. At this point, we still have several connectors left. There's no real easy way to describe how to isolate the harnesses. It's kind of a bit of a bird's nest, so simply just pick a connector and then locate the corresponding connector with the same number of pins and the same color on the board until every one of the connectors is connected. When connecting these connectors in the lower right-hand corner, you'll notice that there's 3 red connectors, but there's on the end of cables, but there's no corresponding connectors on the board. The corresponding connectors on the boards are orange. So in this quadrant, you'll be plugging in red connectors into orange connector bases in those 3 spots he just pointed to. Once you've double-checked each connector to make sure it's securely connected to the board, we're ready to install the rear plastic cover. Pull the 2 major cable bundles off to the side, make sure all the other ones are tucked inside. You don't want to pinch any cables. And then you see the 2 slots on the back. Those have to hook onto tabs that are coming out the rear of the PCB tray. So install the plastic cover back farther than it really needs to go, aligned from side to side, and then pull it forward until the screw hole in the cover aligns with the rearmost of the 2 screw holes in the tray. And hopefully the tabs will have caught the slots in the back, and the way you can determine that is by pulling forward on the plastic cover. You should be able to feel it catch in the back. If you simply replace the 2 screws and you don't have the tabs in the slots on the back of the cover, there'll be some give in the back of the cover, and it's likely to result in a popping noise or some other difficulty when the chair reclines. So it's important that this cover is secured in the rear, as well as on each side by 1 screw. And again, you're using the frontmost of the 2 screw holes that are right next to each other. So you'll still see a screw hole here in front of where it's secured. Once the rear PCB cover is secured, we're ready to start aligning the cables, the strain relief on the cables inside the slot. So let's start with the large one, which obviously goes in the largest slot. And then the rest of the cables are numbered 1 through 7. So we're going to start with number 1, cable number 1 on the right-hand slot, and install each cable in numerical order, moving from right to left. Next, we're ready to install the front PCB cover, but before we can do that, we need to route these blue small cables that are coming from the right-hand side into the little slot in the lower tray. And we need to make sure they stay there as we install the cover so they don't get pinched. Once we align that cover, again making sure there's no wires being pinched, we can replace the 4 screws to secure it. You can see how a magnetized screwdriver comes in very handy when you drop screws. Next, we're ready to replace the rear plastic shroud. Note the slot at the rear of the shroud needs to slide over the corresponding post on the chair frame, on both sides, of course. And once that's solidly in place, you can replace the 2 screws to secure it. And finally, using a paper clip again, close the zipper to secure the rear plastic shroud to the chair, and we're done.